Comparison is the thief of joy. You've probably heard this before. I've heard this probably about 1,000 times, yet sometimes still find myself comparing my life with others. It often leads me thinking that maybe I'm not good enough, that my life isn't interesting enough, and I'm always left with this feeling of unhappiness. Like, watching all these people around me accomplish all these goals and aspirations honestly reminds me that maybe I'm not exactly right where I want to be right now. And lately, all these thoughts have been accumulating to a point where it's been too much. But what if I just never compared myself from the start? Back then, I never really compared my life with others. Maybe the only times I would really compare myself was with my friends, on who had the lowest grades, was the fastest, stupid shit like this. But I guess everything started to change in high school, where it suddenly felt like a dick measuring contest on who had the highest grades, was the most popular, most athletic, and even though I wasn't a super insecure person, I sometimes did feel inferior to everyone else, wishing if I was this, if I was that, and all that. But despite all of this, it didn't really hinder my life that much. Well, not until after the years graduating. I guess comparison really began to take a toll on me during my year off university. I remember those nights scrolling on Instagram, seeing all these people having the time of their lives at university, while I was in my room, wishing that my life was as eventful. It honestly felt like I was going through the same repetitive cycle every single day, where I would wake up, take a shower, eat lunch, try to be productive, sometimes do something with my friends whenever they were busy, and then end my day in my room, just by myself. It honestly felt like my life was sad as hell compared to everyone else's, and I went through one of the worst periods of time in my entire life. But even in these dark times, there was still hope, and I decided to make some changes that would significantly change my life. I grabbed life by the horns and became more confident, more disciplined, stronger, smarter, wiser, and felt better than ever before. But even though it felt like everything was about to click, I still sometimes felt self-conscious about myself. Because while I developed a consistent workout routine, my physique honestly felt like nothing compared to everyone else's. And while I was focused on perfecting each video, other people were getting significantly way more progress on their first few videos compared to mine. And while I was still in university, everyone already knew back then was about to graduate, with everything all figured out right in front of them. And suddenly, things didn't seem so great anymore, and I began to get consumed by the comparison. Was I working hard enough? Should I be working out more? Am I smart enough? Am I too boring? Is it my voice, my personality, my looks, my demeanor, But what if I just never compared myself from the beginning? And what could I have done instead? Let's use an example. This is me, and here are my main goals, aspirations, and life and all that. Every aspect here is actually pretty great. I touch grass and have supportive friends and family. I've made progress and I'm getting better with each video. I've built a considerable amount of muscle compared to back then. And I'm not a failure. Just yet. But then comes comparison. And suddenly, all that great progress I've made gets replaced by feelings of doubts, inadequacies, uncertainties, and questions, taking away from everything I already have. Which leaves me here, where no matter what I accomplish, I will always be stuck in an endless cycle of comparison, leaving me feeling unsatisfied and unhappy. Guess that's what they mean by comparison is the thief of joy. So instead of finding more reasons to hate ourselves, we should just be aware when we find ourselves doing this, live in the present more, and obviously be grateful for all the things we already have. I guess it's pretty evident that social media played a huge part in warping my perspective on reality. One of the main quotes that really knocked some sense into me was that you can't compare your behind-the-scenes life with someone else's highlight reel and call it fair. It was easy to believe that I wasn't good enough or my life was boring as shit when I was comparing my everyday life to what people chose to share about theirs, when honestly, in reality, everyone's normal day probably looks pretty similar. This is probably a reminder for anyone else stuck in a similar situation that at the end of the day, social media is just an illusion, where honestly most of it is fake, and detaching away from it will honestly make a huge difference and allow us to focus on what truly matters. And finally, one of the main things we can all do is to look at everything in a completely different angle. Because at the end of the day, comparison is still necessary for growth, but could be used in a different way to help motivate us to be better. So as cliche as this sounds, instead of comparing ourselves with others, we should compare ourselves with who we were yesterday. Play the cards we are dealt with as best we can and risk everything for what we want. Focus on the things we can control instead of the things we can't. Live in the present more and continue to strive to become 1% better every single day. And who knows where we could end up at the end.